And yes.
All right, I'm getting mine.
You want to do live still?
Yeah, still, because some of the people that I have, like, they just won't go on.
Yeah,
I know. I found us on YouTube too. We got a whole bunch of stuff on there.
Yeah,
Oh,
we have
yeah.
a lot of.
Yeah, oh, I
Yeah,
know.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
fun. Fun to go back and watch past.
I did the same thing last
I
week.
know.
I was like, oh, I like that episode.
This is our 80th show or something, Don? Or
it is.
All
We
right.
are on.
wow, all right,
Wow.
our 80th show.
Good morning,
Wow.
everybody. Welcome to our 80th show.
I know.
Wow.
Yeah, welcome to the green room. And we have great guests this
We
week.
do.
Joni James, I will introduce her as community activist of many things, cannabis mostly, but seen her in articles about solar energy in Tallahassee and everything.
yeah.
I know. So welcome, Joni. And most people know you. She is the driving force. I know not the president at this point, but driving force behind Florida Cannabis Action Network. And, so proud to have known her forever. And, great to have her in the green room because we have so much to discuss because, listen, just general Tallahassee before we even get, to the cannabis in action, basically. But what are they acting on up there? It's incredible. The debate this week,
I want to just know what they're taking because God help us. I don't know what's going on in Tallahassee. I don't know. The debates and the issues.
So Joni, you're an insider and just give us some insights from your angle of what is driving Tallahassee this year. Is it Governor DeSantis essentially and his agenda that's percolating down to the Republican leadership?
Well,
that's driving, right? I mean, let's face it.
And it answers to the governor.
Right.
The crap goes up in
Right.
this case. So yeah.
Is that kind of what's going on up there this year?
And never forget the role of money.
Yeah, of course.
Never forget the role of money. I have been doing this a very long time, as you mentioned, Barry, but please, to say that I'm an insider would really be disheartening to people who really, truly are disheartening. So it would be like, who is that woman?
Us, and the us, and them, and Pink Floyd song, of course. So, right, you are perhaps the ultimate outsider to them. Yes,
I'm an outsider on the inside and the ultimate agitator. My mom used to call my sons the tater kids, and I think they get it from me. Instigator, agitator, irritator, the tater boys. And that's kind of been the role of the Cannabis Action Network in Tallahassee for the last decade.
I don't want to leave the joke. Hang on. I am the pontificator in my clinic, and then I have the educators that come in after me. And I do. I tell the patients and I say, listen, I'm going to give you the history of cannabis and some of the science and this and that, pontificate, and then the educators will be in to finish the visit. So sorry, Joni, I didn't mean to not say.
So you appreciate it. You are also among the tater family. Got it.
No, listen, and I'm a happy agitator with you. And it's funny when we talked yesterday about bringing you into the room. I said, listen, is there still something that we can do? Because session is still going on. I know you're frustrated. I'm frustrated. We're going to talk about the inaction of what they're not doing about cannabis this year. But is there hope? And yes, you said, of course, there's hope.
There's always hope.
Right.
There's always hope. So two things move Tallahassee, and that is money and an agitated majority. So, if we can be loud, and we don't have to hide anymore. That's the interesting thing. 15 years ago, when they passed bills that made us the most progressive state in the nation, we had to sit down and take it because the only regulators had guns. Today, 650,000 people have a right to stand up and say, wait a minute. And if they will, we will win. So I think telehealth is important, and here's why. If we let them take away what we've already had, that's a slippery slope. And lawmakers want to build this program in their image, and their image has very little to do with what is the best for patients. So we have
to have that graphic about pets over vets. And listen, behind me, our green screen has the day up in Tallahassee that unfortunately I missed. I was on the cruise, but seriously, Jody, it was a fantastic day. We were there in spirit. And as you said, we don't have to be quiet anymore. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So good. Pets Over Vets is up there now. So this is the crazy thing in Tallahassee. And please explain, because I know you know what's going on. the veterinarians backed by the Cattlemen's Association and the NRA and powerful lobbying groups and money have gotten the right to do veterinary telehealth. Okay.
I still want to know though, like I get the money thing. I know it's the NRA and the Cattlemen Association, but really telehealth for animals over vets.
I don't understand the concept.
I don't understand the concept either. I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. I still don't get it. I don't understand why they're pushing that agenda. Like why? Like,
but I call it pets over vets, cattle over cancer, felines over the elderly and infirm. I mean, come on, Tally, what's going on? Seriously? So this is true, right? Jody?
So, there are always forces at work that the average person is not going to understand. And one of the things that's happening is there's just very little opposition to telehealth for pets. And the opposition for telehealth for humans, not just medical marijuana patients, is huge. So the FMA apparently is opposed to telehealth in general. And that has to do with billing, Medicaid billing. And so some of their doctors say if we do telehealth, we can't bill as much and Medicaid won't reimburse as much. And it's going to affect our bottom line. And we hear that with other folks. And we also know that telehealth has been abused for medical marijuana. So, those are forces that we are absolutely fighting. But the best thing that has happened to us and what still gives me hope is that when we started our campaign 2 weeks ago now, all the telehealth bills just stopped. They were poised to go to the floor. We started making agitated phone calls. I am confident the phone calls are happening. And the reason I'm confident is because when I ask them what's going on with telehealth, they still say, I don't know, it's getting tied up in medical marijuana. And these are people who would not know that we have started a campaign and that we are agitating. But, when we get together, and that's, there's a couple things the Florida Cannabis Action Network are doing right now. First of all, we just came off that wonderful program in Tallahassee, which was the first time in modern history that live cannabis plants were in the Capitol. Right. So when Ron DeSantis said that he didn't want to see anybody go to jail, but he thought it was putrid, it's because his entire office reeked on Monday. I'm sorry. It was the only thing he could think to say because the whole building smelled like flowering cannabis. So I suspect the next time we do have cannabis rules passed, there will be additional things about air scrubbers. Just saying. We're getting ready to do a 25th anniversary with one of our patron saints of cannabis here in Florida. And we've also launched the We Vote campaign. And the We Vote campaign is kind of bore out of our frustration. Telehealth should be a no-brainer. We used it successfully. And this, by the simple nature of this program, are some of the most vulnerable people in the state. They should have access. It's worked successfully. We can't let them take away something that we've had. That's a slippery slope. But the other things that we want should be no-brainers too.
That's the point that I'm so frustrated about, and you're talking Ruta's language when you talk We Vote, because it's really one of the things that we focus on in pretty much every green room when we talk politics. It's local, it's state,
and it's state. And the thing is, even now, issues that are up, telehealth, it is allowed by Medicare and Medicaid. And it's funny because doctors have been using it. This initiative behind the vets, the veterinary side of it, not the vets, is absurd. I mean, I think for me, I understand, okay, it's an easy go. Nobody really cares about it, but you do have a population of people who have autoimmune diseases and can't get out of it. We had a patient last week, they can't get out, or this week, they couldn't get out of bed. They're stage 4 and they need the medicine. And here, I just still don't understand where the disconnect is with them with patients. I really don't. And again, the We Vote, I think it's incumbent even on our offices and every practice that's out there who talks to their patients every day is to get them more politically motivated to make those phone calls, because like you said, the agitated voices of, if they keep 650,000 voices saying enough is enough, you need to take us seriously as medical patients, I think it would have huge impact. I mean, it really does. Look, you guys just with Florida Can, your voices of agitation are pushing the bar to tell them to like, okay, they're kind of backing off now and kind of stand still. But if you had 650,000 phone calls a day, and just jamming those phone lines, I think it would move mountains. And
it would. Where's my medicine? Why is my medicine so expensive? Why is it I can't go get a job because I'm not protected? How come I can't use alternative therapies? How come I'm still going to jail if I have concentrate and it's in the wrong container?
I got knocked off the transplant list because they found out I was a medical cannabis patient. So believe me, there's tons of issues. And I guess the frustrating thing to me is, and you know this, we've worked our butt off. Okay. I told you I was going to,
You're doing good, Barry. You're doing good, Dr. Barry.
We've worked very, very hard. What's the difference between ass and butt? I don't know, especially in this Facebook world or YouTube world, wherever the hell we're in. I know, don't shut us down. What is, we've really worked hard to get a seat at the table, and Jody knows because she's, been a part of it longer than I, but she's seen the doctors attempting to organize. And, it's funny how you mentioned about telehealth not always being done correctly in the state. I showed Ruta yesterday in my Justice League feed, or actually in just a side feed, somebody reaching out to me asking me if I've ever heard of Aerial. Okay, well, of course I've heard of Aerial. Everybody knows. Everybody knows. We've talked about it in this green room, right? Right, and in many other venues.
But you know what? They're part of the problem, because
they are.
Here's the problem with the telehealth. Okay, well, you have somebody who comes in out of state and is abusing that, and then all of a sudden you punish all of our patients.
The point is there's known issues in the state that are not being dealt with, and then we can't get the simple things done that we know are appropriate and safe for our patients. And, really, I'm not going to get overwhelmingly depressed, because I know we have next year and the year after and the year after to do what we need to do. Because Jody, the issues that you mentioned of job protection, of in-hospital institution, nursing home, assisted living, state by state reciprocity. Okay, all those issues, as you know, were given up in the Learned Roach bill first draft because they knew better. And we were hoping that the bill was going to be a negotiated bill, which can't even get a committee hearing, much less the House bill. And this is why I want you in, because you know all this. House Bill 333, which was J.R. Williamson's bill, which was a much more isolated telehealth for cannabis, bill. So none of them have been heard. And that's the insulting thing about the pets over vets thing, is that it's a leadership driven process. So when you and I talked, I know that there still can be an action plan, okay, that is getting to certain people in the leadership and the committee heads. And who would those people be, Jody? Because I know who you are, and I think they're even on the graphic behind me or something. But
I think so. Not this graphic, but if you've got the veterans graphic, we're really looking at, call everybody. Start with calling your own representative. Why is it that I'm not going to get telemedicine this year? One thing that you said that was so true is all politics is local. And at the end of the day, when you think about it, you go to work and you do your job. When you come home and you're going to go over and above the call of duty, you're going to go over and above the call of duty for your friends, someone you know, someone you like. So I think the more you spend time locally getting to know these men and women who represent us, and the men and women who we're going to ask to represent you in November, because they may very well be different people, the more you get to know them, the more likely they are to do something for you. And Dr. Barry, you've been spouting this. You've been getting to know. You are not of the same political persuasion of everyone who represents you. And you don't let that stop you from having a grown-up, professional, collegial, leading to friendly relationship with these people. And, some of the stuff that would be the worst of it, there is a bill that's going around right now that would prohibit smoking on the beaches. Now, I am probably the only one that is very concerned about anti-smoking rules, because I have thought, even when we passed the Initiative for Indoor Clean Air Act years ago, when we passed the Indoor Clean Air Act, I was like looking for a carve out so that I could ultimately have a cannabis consumer club and smoke indoors, just so you know. So even 15 years ago, which, as you'll note, we're having the 25th anniversary coming up on Sunday, on February 22nd, 1997. Kathy Jordan, who was one of our past presidents, came out and spoke for the first time. So literally 25 years ago, Florida Cannabis Action Network and its predecessors were already looking then at what was going to change the landscape. We knew when the threshold went from 50+1 to 60%, that was going to affect the cannabis community. And for those who don't pay a lot of attention, I'm talking about constitutional amendments. There was a time in this state, in my activism, that we only needed 50% plus one. And now medical marijuana failed with 59%. We can wake up the day after an election with 59% of the vote and be a loser. And if lawmakers have their way, that threshold's going to go even higher.
Oh, it would.
Well, no, it is. They're debating. I mean, there's bills right now up there that are, if you follow, Representative Carlos Smith, of course, or Representative Andrew Learned, there's ways of, believe me, what's going on up at Tallahassee right now is very, very scary. And if you want to talk about voter efforts, okay, and energizing efforts, okay, let's face it, everybody, to me, this is a critical time, not only here in Florida, but nationally. I mean, certain things can change right now. We're talking about 15-week, abortion ban in Florida with no carve out, for rape or incest. And I was watching the debate the other day.
The health of the mother or the health of the baby.
I watched that debate, and I watched that debate. You need two letters and from this and that. It's unbelievable and so scary. Listen, I'm talking emergency doctor here, okay? When I started back in 81, I still was caring for women with complications of rusty coat hanger abortions. And the dastardly thing about this is that the rich will always find a place to receive the health care they want. Okay.
We have a GNC or whatever where they go in and they scrape and the insurance covers it.
Mm-hmm. No, it's the whole thing that's going on right now. It's a disgrace. And the only
listen, what if you have two gay parents as your parents and you're in second grade?
Don't talk about your family.
Or if you're a gay teacher. Okay.
Don't talk about your family.
Yeah.
And the burying of legitimate history, of what's formed this country. And that's why I'll be honest with you, and I've never been an overly politically active person in the past. Cannabis activism has brought me into a certain amount of political activism, but watching society in front of me as I turned 66 in May, as everybody knows, can't get through a green room without talking about it.
It's like, 65, I understood. 66, 67, who cares?
It's around 66, not the rest or something. No, but seriously, I just don't want my generation to go down as the generation that watched it all go away.
Yes, to go back in time.
To go back in time.
And we are. So that's, I think the beautiful thing about Florida Cannabis Action Network has been the idea that there's someone in this organization that has faced that injustice, whatever you're facing. Someone in this organization has faced it, and they are ready to hold your hand while you face it. And if we face the injustices in our lives with tools, then we can begin to change the paradigm. I just firmly believe that this is this is either the last dying breath of democracy or the last dying breath of this kind of fascism that we're seeing in America. And it's going to be up to the rising up of people. We get the right medicine. I love Cannabis Action Network. I say that, once you are trained to speak out on cannabis, you can talk about anything. You mentioned I'm like, who knew I was going to do this solar thing? But I was in CNN yesterday over a story from 3 weeks ago. Like they're still talking about it.
Awesome, yeah.
It's hilarious. CNN's picked up my testimony twice.
Wow.
I've not done the first press release on solar. I got up and testified once because they made me mad.
It's all right.
To $25 overnight because of fees. Who knew?
I keep bugging CNN. CNN posted just overnight, the worsening opioid overdose crisis in this country. It's not that it hasn't gone away, it's worsening with COVID, with isolation, with depression, with the availability of the garbage coming in, okay, over the borders now, okay? It's worse. And what I tweeted about it this morning is that you must include, not exclude cannabis as a solution, as a part of the discussion as we go forward. Because I'm so sick of
the only thing, excuse me on that, like the only argument I would have on that, they have to look at this because cannabis is opening up in many more states than it has in the past. And if you're seeing opioid rising at the same time as cannabis is opening up in the United States, that's an odd correlation.
My comment was my
mean?
patients are looking to take less, to minimize, okay, to use less. I'm not saying it's a solution for everybody, but it has to be a part of the discussion, okay, in the appropriate angle, and let's not put it into the, but my point is, CNN, come out, come and see what's going on in the clinic. I mean, that's my point. You know, we invite the politicians, the press, everybody.
Two things are happening with this. First of all, yes, cannabis is rolling out in more and more states, but it's not covered by insurance. And in states where they're rolling it out for adult use, fentanyl's still cheaper. I can go to the street and get fentanyl way cheaper than I can go to a place in, where was it that they were saying $100 and something eighths on the legal market because of taxes. So let's not pretend like cannabis is available there to poor people who are depressed because they just lost their job. But I can go get some powder and they'll cut it 2 or 3 times and it'll make me feel better and it'll be cheap. And then I'll have $25 the next time. And instead of getting something that's been cut 2 or 3 times, I'll get something that was cut once and the same dose kills me.
Oh, yeah.
And that has always been the problem with prohibition. And, you know, as we roll out these medical states, if we're not careful, we are still arresting people. One of my colleagues, as we're planning for the 20th anniversary on Sunday or 25th anniversary on the 20th for Kathy Jordan, I was able to have a half hour with our founder and first president, Kevin Applin. He moved from the United States to Portugal, where all drugs are decrim, but there is no regulated industry for bringing the drugs in. So it's hit or miss. It's decrim, but you can barely get it. And there's still big busts at the border. The program that has rolled out in most states don't allow for someone to get seeds like they would tomato seeds so that they can grow a little bit for their own personal use. We have taxed it to the point where it remains a commodity for the rich. Yes. The harms with prohibition, he said, are we still arresting people in Florida? When Kevin was the president, Florida Cannabis Action Network was able to take it from about 45,000 arrests a year to about 23,000 arrests a year. So we were able to cut it almost in half through public education within the user community. We taught people how to not get arrested. That was our job in the 90s. But he asked, and I said, well, we only had 11,000 for misdemeanor possession last year, but concentrates are a felony. So now if you have a gummy or if you have a brownie or if you have a vape pen, you're not getting a misdemeanor arrest, boo. You're getting a felony.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. It's an insidious,
so my joint will get me, usually at this point, my joint is going to get me probation or some sort of diversion. Your edible is a felony. That's a concentrate.
Still a felony, Schedule 1. Yep.
Felony, Schedule 1 drug. And we've not made allowances for the concentrates the way we did for a joint, because nobody wants to send you to jail for a joint, but we haven't got there on concentrates yet. So people are still going to jail. The fight continues, and it starts with getting registered to vote. One of the things that I am most concerned about, and as in the medical profession, I'm going to put this in your ear. If you have just been diagnosed with a neuromuscular disorder, my guess is your signature has changed. And if you followed what happened with the gambling initiative, they kicked out 65,000 signatures as not being valid because they don't look the same. And I don't know about you, but when I was 18, I signed it with a heart above the I and Jody.
Absolutely.
And when I was in my 40s, I was really full of myself. And so the J's were really big. And now I'm just kind of tight. I'm in my 50s. So
no, I'm a doctor. I don't think I ever signed the same way exactly twice.
And your ballot could be then when you signed my initiative to put medical marijuana on the ballot, or when you sign to adult freedom, maybe that signature is good, maybe it's not. But more importantly, when you cast your ballot, is it going to be accepted? Yes, so long as you didn't do it provincially or you didn't do it vote by mail, because if you do it vote by mail, and the signature's not the same.
Yeah, it's a vote by mail that gets me always.
It's nervous. A fight. It's a
and
fight.
Then some people just forget to sign. So, like, I mean,
yeah.
we
got to be ready to fight. We got to be ready to organize, fight.
To organize. If you go to flcan.org/wevote, you can find a link to check your voter registration. Make sure it's valid. Okay. Because remember, if some other Barry Gordon was a felon and got excluded, you might have been taken off the voting rolls. Oops. So just check and make sure that you are still you. If you haven't registered, if you haven't been to the DMV in a while, and you can get in there and register again and sign it with your new signature, or download one and send it in, make sure, because this is the time right now. Make sure you're registered to vote. Make sure your neighbors are registered to vote. And as we move forward, Florida Cannabis Action Network, for the last 10 election cycles, we have done a comprehensive primary voter guide where we let you know in the primary who's who. We do it because people continue to give us money, even though we've walked away from session. I had a conversation with someone the other day and they said, so Jody, how does your organization make money? And I said, well, Holly, I'm probably going to ask you for $50 by the time we leave breakfast. That's how Florida Cannabis Action Network makes its money. But on Sunday, the 20th, we're doing a fundraiser for our immediate past president. And people who might be seeing that around should know that all of the proceeds from that are going directly to Kathy Jordan's Care and Support. Kathy Jordan came out 25 years ago on February 22nd. And for those of you who would have been around back then, that was not a great time to stand up and say, I smoke pot, particularly if you are wheelchair bound and can't raise your arms when they raid your house. So she had a lot of concerns coming out in those early days. We taught people who came out in the 1990s, the first thing we taught them was the First Amendment. And the second thing we taught them was the Fourth Amendment. Because in 1997, if you were going to get out and talk about this, you better know how to protect yourself because the police were coming. It wasn't maybe they're coming. When we would get out and we would hold signs on a street corner that said, sign a petition, we knew the police were coming. The first fights that we had were not about whether or not we should legalize marijuana or whether or not a patient should have access. The first fights we had were in the 11th Circuit Court in Atlanta to determine whether or not we even had the right to talk about changing the law. We had to protect the First Amendment before we could even consider getting a patient the right to cannabis. But now that you have the right, you are only good to me if you exercise it. And that means registering to vote and coming out to celebrate on Sunday.
Tell us about the event, Jody. I know it's going to be up in St. Pete Beach.
I'm so excited.
At the center, right? St. Pete Beach, our friend Mike Moses and those guys. So what's going on? Tell us about the event.
So Kathy Jordan, if you don't know her name, you just haven't been paying attention. Kathy Jordan was the lead patient in the John Morgan lawsuit to get us access to smokable flower. Kathy Jordan was the name that John Morgan invoked in 2014 and 16 as he went around the state talking about that woman whose home had been raided, that woman with ALS. She had survived 10 years with Lou Gehrig's disease when she came out in almost 11 years when she came out in 1997. And this Sunday in St. Petersburg at the center, we're going to have the honor of looking at some of the milestones over the last 25 years, and we are raising money for Kathy's continued care and support.
Yep.
Strangely enough, there is not a retirement plan for old activists like myself. And Kathy, when you and I were in our prime and we were saving for our retirement and we were figuring out what we wanted to be, at age 33, or like 30 something, Kathy was diagnosed with a fatal disease and given 3 to 5 years to live. So she's very blessed that her son and daughter-in-law are able to live with them and care for them. But Kathy's not done. And so while
she's strong. I've had the honor of seeing her recently with you, Jody, and I'll be at the event on Sunday, Patty as well. And tell everybody how they can get involved still, of course.
Sure, absolutely. Well, and the point is, while it's going to be a retrospect on the last 25 years, we have an agenda. We believe that every doctor in America, every doctor in the world should be trained in the endocannabinoid system. You should not be practicing medicine without understanding that fundamental. She firmly believes that it is time to focus and harness the power of this industry to remove cannabis from Schedule I of the Federal Controlled Substance Act. And she is absolutely dedicated to working with the Florida Cannabis Action Network over the next couple of years as we integrate the existing industry. And that means the legacy market, the hemp market, and the existing MMTCs into the adult use market. So Sunday in St. Petersburg, flcan.org for Kathy, number 4, CATHY, or you can do the hashtag Stand With Kathy in your social media, whether that would be Twitter or Facebook or Instagram. If you check out.
I love that too. It's so meaningful too,
Right. Absolutely. Well, I believe in giving flowers to the living, which might have something to do with my affection for cannabis flower. But anyhow, I really believe in giving flowers to the living. I'm not one, I will likely tell you that I love you today rather than send flowers to your grave. Today we get to stand with Kathy. Tomorrow we may have to stand for Kathy. But today we should be, each and every one of us, be doing everything that we can. There is a video out there of Kathy in 2020. And the last segment is me, and it made me cry. Because I'm in 2020, I'm like a 30-year-old woman. And I am screaming in a bullhorn from the rotunda, or from the plaza there at the Capitol. And Kathy's with me. And at that point, we had gone 160 miles from the prison in Stark, which is where you go if you get a felony for cannabis, just saying, to the Capitol building. We had patients in wheelchairs that led the way. On the times that it rained, we walked. We had wheels or feet on the ground for the entirety of the time. And I am screaming in this bullhorn. And I said, if this woman in this wheelchair can get up and do this, what is wrong with you?
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. And rings so true today. Well, listen, I can't wait to see you on Sunday. And thanks for joining us.
Thank you
Jody,
for all you do. Really.
Thank you. Tickets are still available. We have about 25 tickets left. It is a limited ticket event. So there's about 25 tickets left, which means we're more than 2/3 full. And we would still be glad to honor sponsors. We have more than covered the expenses. People have given so generously. We're going to be able to write a big check to the Jordan family and know that everything that we're able to give is nothing compared to what they have given.
Yep. Well, listen, what a great way to wrap up. Fantastic green room. And listen, everybody, we have a couple, 3 weeks, whatever left in session.
Make phone calls.
Right. Make phone calls. Let's not let the fire die. Let's stoke it.
Just put pressure on everybody. I know we gotta go.
We gotta go. Got patience.
See everybody next week.